war with its small neighbor to the south, Georgia, which had up until that time had been up for consideration as a member of NATO. Would you consider would you take Georgia to be a member of NATO, and in general, what steps should the United States be taking in response to a resurgent Russian security threat?
I think that the first point we need to focus on is the correlation between current President Medvedev and Prime Minister Putin. If you notice, Prime Minister Putin, for some reason now, has more power as Prime Minister than he ever did as President. This is a man who has pulled the second Iron Curtain over the eyes of Russia. This is a man that after the 1993 Constitution was passed in Russia, Yeltsin gave significant amounts of power to the parliament because he believed in what he considered a Russian federation. But all of a sudden, when Putin became president, more decrees were able to be issued. Those governors who were appointed into the Duma were now appointed by a 7% ratio, and most of the time friends with Putin. The second point I would like to make is that Putin solely controls the media in Russia. There is an extraordinarily detrimental effect when the propaganda being portrayed on TV simply praises Putin as the second Stalin. Now, what we have, my friends, is an authoritarian parliament and a regime controlled by Vladimir Putin. The American response, initially, right now, should not be to accept Georgia as a NATO ally, but rather to put various pressures on the Russian quote-unquote federation to make sure that they're doing their job. Americans should go in with their allies. We cannot go in by ourselves. The fact of the matter is that various countries throughout the world are not stupid. They see what is going on in Russia, and it is my contention that America must stay involved heavily. A resolution from the Congress, an executive order from the President, asking Putin to stop doing what he's doing and let people speak out. Putin killed 2 journalists simply because they didn't agree with Russian policy. The Georgians must first fend for themselves, but if not, America must intervene directly, but with our allies.
Thank you, Matt. Matt has 90 seconds.
Well, it's kind of tough to deal directly with our allies when we don't really have much left because of the Iraqi war. Now, the point of the matter is that with this war in Russia and Georgia, that we must talk to the Russians, that we must talk to Vladimir Putin and to Medvedev. Now, one of the issues that you brought up was a valid point about Vladimir Putin's power. I don't think that anybody disagrees with that point, that Putin probably has too much power. However, my opposition to you, Mr. Liggieri, is that we must talk to them first. You mentioned in your opening statement how you would not even want to talk with these countries, quote, without preconditions. You tried to make a joke out of it. Now, you can laugh all that you want here, but the point of the matter is that with these preconditions, this is just the next president, probably President Barack Obama, and going to these countries and talking with them. Because you cannot get anywhere without talking to the leader. You cannot have the leader of the United States of America refuse to talk to another country's leader just because you don't agree with them or that you think that we have too much power. Otherwise, I'm sure that a lot of people would do that with President Bush today. Now, to further stipulate one of the points that you made, with how we deal with the Russian government now is that we must engage directly with the Russian government on issues of mutual interest. We must work with them on nuclear proliferation, and we must work with them to make sure that Al-Qaeda does not resurface in Russia.
Paul, 30 seconds.
To quote Matt Landau, he said we should work with the Russian government on nuclear proliferation. Well, that's a really smart idea, don't you think? This is a man who has completely blindsided the rest of the world into believing that he is running what is a federation. If Matt Landau had specified my remarks, he would have been cognizant of the fact that when I was speaking of preconditions, I was speaking particularly to Iran and to President Ahmadinejad, who Matt Landau would agree that his own candidate would meet with him with no preconditions. I think we would find that the fact is that President George W. Bush, President Bill Clinton, former President Bush, these are all individuals who have met with Russian Federation government members. These are all individuals who have met with Putin. And perhaps if Mr. Landau did some fact-checking, he would already know that we've settled those preconditions.
Thank you, Paul. Next question is will Matt will start off the answer. Matt, is China, People's Republic of China, a strategic partner of the United States, an adversary, or an enemy? And what should be our foreign policy towards China and the Pacific Rim in general?
I think that with regards to China, we must work with them once again, just like other countries. That it's no longer good enough that we must trade with China, that China has good sources, and that we must trade with them to make sure that the United States does not get hurt abroad. That's a good question.
I guess, Paul, are you done, Matt?
For now.
Paul, go ahead. 90 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Landau, for that extensive response. Ladies and gentlemen, China, I want it understood right now as a fact and not opinion that we are globally interdependent on China, and that we cannot directly go in with any military intervention, but rather those of you who know just war theory, and those of you who have ever taken a philosophy course, understand that there comes a time when the world must become involved in humanitarian intervention to prevent the evils that China is putting on its own people. China calls itself the People's Republic, but what they really are is a stance back to communism. They pose themselves as this great leader, and they cover up most of the bad things they do to their own people. But Deng Xiaoping, one of the former leaders of China, is guilty of filing a report, according to the Brookings Institute, that if the United States became directly involved in any intervention, that he would shoot over 100 Scud missiles at any planes entering over Chinese airspace, excuse me. This is a problem that we must deal with our allies. I think if we were to put pressure on China, because although China's economy is growing 10 times at the rate of the United States, our economy is roughly 10 times the size of China's. Because we are globally interdependent, these are sanctions that we can happily place on the Chinese government in hopes that they will provide a better life for their people. And hopefully they will not condemn them for practicing their own religion.
Paul, sorry, break your time now. Matt, you have 30 seconds. We need a little more if you could be left some on the table.